Hi there, this is Craig Stevens, and this is the BrentwoodPodcast.com. So, what we're doing is we're in the Brentwood podcast, it's all about arts. And so, what we're going to talk about today is the art that Ann and I are working on. We're writing books, and they're based on paintings, and it's going to be something real interesting. We're going to share that. So, Ann, would you like to expand on that just a little bit?
Sure. Hi, thank you for being with us today. We have just started on a journey of creating children's books, many of which have stories that rhyme, but all are based on Craig's artwork. And it goes into heroes that we want our children to appreciate, and in a Christian way, have them pray for these people and have an appreciation for how they serve and protect us in various ways. So we want to start this journey today with a few books that we've already put up on Amazon, and we'll focus on one in particular to give you a better idea on what's included in each of these. So, Craig?
All right,
where do
very
we go?
good. Very good. So Ann and I do other things too. So I noticed in the background, my head keeps covering up our Change Mentor logo. So we're part of the Change Mentors. We have a Change Mentor Academy where we teach technical things, or basically business stuff like leadership, culture, and we're working on project management now. So be sure to look for that too. But before we go any further, let me just go ahead and share my screen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the Amazon page, the author page, my author page, so you can get an idea of all the books. So here we go. And can you see that okay?
Right now, but there we go. Now they're up. There we go.
All right. So on this page, this is just all the books we're writing. And some of these are being in the process of being rewritten because we got about 10 books that are on up here yet that we're working on. And so they're going to keep growing as we go. So if you look at each of these are our series. They're the prayers for our heroes and those who love them series. That was Ann's idea as far as the series title. So that was really good. And then in these books, there's stories that we're going to get deeper into based on the paintings. So I'll just click on this one is what we're going to talk about today, our Native American heroes and their legacy. So if I click on this one, you can see it gets to a right now they're Kindle, but shortly there will be paperback books so that you can actually order them. And they're a very reasonable price. We want to make sure everybody could get them. And if you open up one of these, you can go back to all the other groups in that series. So you can see I just clicked on that and these other books came up. Probably by the end of this month and next month, we'll have 10 more up or some number, maybe 5. I say 10 and probably rolled her eyes at me. But we'll have a couple more up. How's that? That better? And then, so if I go back in here, and you can click on that. This is what the picture looks like on the front cover. Oops, I went to the second page. So it'll actually show you a little bit of what's in the book. So this kind of gives you a layout of this particular book. So it just gives you a flavor of the book. And we're going to go in a little bit detail. We'll show you our Canva version. It may not be the latest version, but we'll show you how it's laid out so that you'll have a good feel for it. So that's that part. Anything you want to add to the Amazon part, Ann?
Just reiterating what you said, we're keeping these very affordable because our goal is to make sure that everybody can have this at their fingertips. And as far as the Christian values that are in here are important to us. And we want to make sure that families can enjoy this book together. Parents have a guide to help them and help their children understand how to make these values and these Christian ideas come across to their children. There are activities that can be done together as a family. There are the stories there so that you can read that with your children. And then as an adult, there are things that you can do on your own through the Bible verses that are actually on here,
Yep.
on these books.
Very good. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a couple of more pages. The first one opened up was the art page, and the second one opened up is just our working copy of how we work on it. So that's the Canva page. So remember, we're looking for this particular book in the art side. So if we go to how to get to this page, you go to my full name, CraigAStevens.com, and you scroll down. This is kind of the way that website opens up, and there's several different things you could look at. And they're not all flags. Someone asked me, oh, you do all flags. Well, I do a lot of weird different things. And so if we were to look at the different styles, you'd never know that one person did it. I mean, for example, that looks so much different than that, and that looks so much different than this. So you get a full flavor of the different types of art. And the reason I started doing those different styles, I guess, is because I was artist in high school, I guess, and I wanted to be an artist, but I ended up going through engineering school. And so that way you get to design things, right? And what I've 20 years after I was an engineer, I decided to write a book on one of the models we developed, one of the models I developed with a mentor of mine, Dr. Jerry Westbrook. And I said, well, I can illustrate this book. And I just started painting again, right? So then that was the Geronimo Stone series, is kind of an adventure case study. And it teaches the 7 attributes of excellent management. So I thought it was really cool. And it's still up on our Amazon page. You can look at that too. But what I did was I created a style that was specifically for one character and another style specifically for another character. And that's why there's so many different styles on this particular, the way I paint. But one of the things that we're trying to do, well, oh no, what happened there? Let's get rid of that. So one of the things I'm trying to do is trying to document and record all the heroes. And so we have a whole series of paintings set up on related to heroes. This particular group that we're looking at is the heroes and history. So if I click on that, it'll go into a little bit more detail. It shows the first 3 paintings of flags I ever did. And there's a story behind that, but that's not the story we're talking about today. And then it goes into a lot of other flag series. This one, I tell you a little story about this one. I showed this one time, man, and there was some guy that was shouting at me from across the street saying how bigoted I am and how much of a racist I am for painting this flag, right? Mm-hmm. But the story behind it is this is one of our books, and it talks about the journey to freedom. And this is the Underground Railroad route, and all the names here and all the places are famous people, or not famous people, but heroes of the Underground Railroad, and Black heroes who got the Medal of Honor and fought in the Black regiments that fought in the Civil War and all the battles they fought in. So it's a story of triumph from the good guy point of view, where the American flag is blocking the other flag, right? But that's not a story we're going to talk about. I just want to show you there's lots of symbolism. This is one of those paintings. You can see it looks just like the book, the cover. So this painting, I'd like to go in detail, but Anne, do you want to say anything about what I said so far before I jump into what the symbolism is?
You're going to find that every one of these books has some amount of symbolism in it, whether it's for military, firefighters, this one in particular, our Native American people, or any other topic that Craig decides to paint. There's always something that's going to be in the background to show the heroes that he's trying to impress upon the audience. So yeah. It's fascinating. Nobody else does this.
Well, not only, yeah, that's exactly right. And a lot of times people who will come by and see one of the shows or something, they'll have tears in their eyes. I remember one of the people who came as related to police officers, and he was a hardened police officer from a big city, and he came over and he started admiring that. I said, "Would you like one?" He says, "Well, I don't can't really afford it to buy one." I said, "Well, I'll just give you one." And he started crying. He said, "No one has, this when all the stuff was going on in the world, about trying to villainize all, is that a real word? I think it is. Villain.
Yes, it is.
So trying to make the police officers be the bad guys. And, there may be some bad police officers out there because they're people, right? But that's not the rule. And they're well trained. They go through all kinds of training. They may still be some bad people going through all those training. But, if you look at any group of people anywhere, chances are you're going to find good and bad people in those groups. And I would say majority of people are trying to be good people, even though our natural tendency is to be selfish and look at things from our point of view. That's just the way people are. But so anyway, so these are very emotional. My goal was to honor the Lakota Indians during Wounded Knee. So this is the massacre at Wounded Knee. So that's a pretty heavy subject for a children's book. And so how can we pull that off? How can we take such a heavy subject for all these books and try to make it something that you would want your children to read? How do we do that?
Well, Craig and I spent a bit of time discussing how we could do that and not make it a negative book, which is hard to do when you have a battle like this. So we decided to highlight all the Native American people who made a difference in the lives of their tribes and even in the lives of people in this country in a positive way. And it's not just the typical Native Americans that you know. There are people here that you've never heard of. When Craig was putting this together and I was doing the editing, I was introduced to a number of Native American people I had never heard of that had done things that were amazing to me. And you don't hear about them. So it was such a pleasure to be able to work on this book and be able to release it and show people.
Yeah, and this is this heavy subject of Wounded Knee. This was never a battle. This was a massacre, right? But all our other paintings have many battles in them. But that's one of the mistakes, slips of the tongue, because the way we've been taught over the years. So anyway, let me look at this so you can see the very faint medals in the background. Well, that was the 1800 version of the Medal of Honor. There were 20 Medal of Honors given to the Army soldiers during that time. There is a Medal of Honor given for the officer who controlled, who managed this group. And that's hardly ever done. I mean, you get Medal of Honor because you did something that no one else in their right mind would contemplate doing, right? There would be, they're under emotional stress. They're under, even though they're scared to death, they're doing something beyond bravery. They're standing off a whole battalion of people while their friends get away. They're going time again to retrieve people and help people who are shot in the battlefield. Most of the Medal of Honor winners get wounded or have been die during that process. And so these 20 Medal of Honors represent something that's never done ever since then, before then. And that was to honor 20 people in the middle of what was a battle. Never before. Maybe one person gets a Medal of Honor every 1,000 battles, something like that. But this was 20 people for this one battle. They call it a battle, which is a massacre. So let me tell you a story, and then I'll tell you what the Medal of Honors were given for. So the Battle of the battle. See, I did it again. The massacre at Wounded Knee occurred when the U.S. soldiers were ordered to take the weapons away from the Lakota tribe as in this area called Wounded Knee. And I may butcher the story a little bit, but here's the gist of it. So these guys, these soldiers go in and surround this village, this women, children, and men, right? And so they're going to take all the weapons away from the tribes. Well, at that point in our history, the weapons were needed just to hunt. They were needed for protection and everything else. I mean, that was part, if you didn't have a weapon, you couldn't just go to Kroger's, right? You couldn't just go to pick up something. You couldn't go to Walmart or Target or someplace else to pick up food or your clothing or anything else you wanted. You had the weapon that was a tool, that was survival. And so now this soldier's going in to pick up their survival tool and their protection tool and what set them apart as a people. And so as they were taking the weapons away from the braves, one older American Indian, he held tight to his gun and he said, I paid a lot of money for this. And the soldiers were jerking the guns away from the older guy, the older American Indian. And in the process, it went off. Well, that's the excuse for what happened after that. And so the soldiers who were surrounding this village just started shooting into the crowd, women, children, braves in the crowd, the braves who most of the weapons were turned in. So now they're fighting back with knives and hatchets and, whatever they had, arrows, I guess. And it was a massacre. 300 Lakota men, women, and children died that day, that night from that massacre. And so that's the setting of what took place. It's the battle I Left My Heart a Wounded Knee, I think is one of the books I remember seeing. But that's pretty deep, and that's just crazy. So now they got a Medal of Honor for doing that. 20 people, right? One of these they wrote these Medal of Honors up. You don't just hand it to somebody. You put a little paragraph of why they deserve Medal of Honor. So they got the Medal of Honor. One got the Medal of Honor for running down a runaway mule, an army mule. Another guy got a Medal of Honor. Some of these people got Medal of Honor for tracking down the children that are hiding in the bushes and killing them. So it was a disaster. It was a dark point in history. So why is that a children's book? So we don't cover all of that in the children's book. What we do is we go in and talk about the Native American heroes and their legacy, and I'll show you more about that. But you got to know the symbolism of what started this in order to understand where we're coming from. So now the next 300 names on top of that painting are the people, the men, the victims of this massacre. So these 20, more soldiers than that, but these 20 had to have hush money, I guess, so they wouldn't report it because they would report their own Medal of Honor. And so they used that as hush money for, keep this quiet, don't tell anybody. And then 300 names are the next names on top. Below that, there's the American Indians, the Native Americans who got the Medal of Honor the right way. Remember, we said not everybody gets a Medal of Honor. This is very unusual to get Medal of Honor. But the names of the American Indians who got the Medal of Honor the right way for bravery and for stress under combat, that type of thing, saving people. And then the next group are just the American Indians who died in Vietnam, and they represent all the soldiers, all the airmen, all the sailors, and all the Marines, all the Coast Guard sailors, everybody who died protecting our country. Those names are Vietnam only because those are the ones I could find. And then below that are just names of all the current day tribes. And it's every different tribe that I could find. So that's that symbolism in the back. That's pretty heavy. And
it is. It's an amazing piece. And if you ever have the opportunity to see these things up close and personal, even if you don't know people, when you just look at the number of people that are impacted
Yeah.
by whatever circumstance that Craig's writing about, it'll give you goosebumps.
Yep.
He did a painting on firefighters, wildland firefighters. And I have an uncle who died in a fire in Yosemite, and his name is on there. And I can't even look at it without tearing up. So, you know, these are powerful. And, you know, just to know that somebody took the time to recognize someone that you loved and cared about, when they're not here anymore, and that doesn't matter. So,
and my older kids are about 1/8 Cherokee, I guess, because their great grandmother was 100% Cherokee. So that's the only connection I have personal on that side. But that's but so anyway, let me go through the rest of the symbolism. This Medal of Honor in the painting that's in the foreground is representation of all those American Indians who got Medal of Honor the right way. The long black feather, that's the primary feather of our nation's bird, you know, the bald eagle. That's what the primary feather looks like. It represents the United States. The split feather represents wounded wounds. You know, if a brave was to get wounded in battle, there's a split feather. It's one of the symbols. I mean, there's other symbols too. The red feather represents many wounds. So those, it's tied together in a Lakota prayer symbol, so that this is kind of a symbol of prayer for the Lakota. And the American flag is there because that represents the people of the United States. Our Native American heroes are also our citizens of the United States. And the flag represents we the people. The flag never was intended to represent the government of the United States. It always represents we the people of the United States that created this government to help protect the people of the United States. The splits in the flag, you see where the flag's torn, that represents the splits between the people. Because even if you do that great, there's always, that's kind of between tribes, when I say tribes, I'm using it very generically, between everybody. You know, there's forces in the United States that are trying to pull us apart, and this represents that. The black ribbon represents mourning, and the cross on top represents truth. And since this is a Christian book, you know, we're coming from a Christian's perspective. And also, I remember just recently I saw a documentary, and one of the big revivals that are movements are from the Native Americans, as they see themselves as the current day evangelists to bring across the principles of Christianity. And the current principles of Christianity are all men are created equal, that all women and men are equal, and just, you know, there's a whole bunch of them. They have different roles and different responsibilities and different strengths and different weaknesses, but they're all equal. So anyway, that's the symbolism behind this painting. So now we're going to talk about how do we tie that kind of dark subject into a lighthearted Christian book, right? And so we'll go through that in each of the sections, just so you get a feel for that. But Anne, would you like to say anything before I do that?
no, I don't think so. I know you can look at what we've just talked about, which is much more serious and much more foreboding. But when you see what we've done for the children's side of it, it's uplifting.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're trying to accomplish with all of our books.
Yeah, and so the painting is what spun off the book, but and the only place that's mentioned is for the adults to understand that. So that story I just told you is in the very back of the book. It's the story behind the book. So let's go up to the front of the book. The first part of the book is for teaching your children. So to read to them or have them read to you. But in here, this one specifically is written as poetry, and it talks about a lot of the heroes. Like the very first one is Crazy Horse, which reminds me where this painting is, it's all about Lakota, right? And so where this painting will probably end up will be in the Lakota, the Crazy Horse Museum. And so that's where I hope it will go. And then you see stories about different Native Americans who had a major impact, not only their tribes, but all across the US. So we have different, like there's different American, and notice how many, Anne, I think one of the things you said was just all the stamps.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So I could have made it all stamps, but I chose to pick some of the stamps and Geronimo. And we even named, it reminds me, the book that we wrote related to the 7 attributes of excellent management is called Geronimo Stone. And the hero in that book was always an admirer of Geronimo and always got his name because he was always jumping into trouble. That's where Geronimo came from. Like that's what people used to yell before they jumped out of the airplane, for example. And it shows now there's what we didn't go into. We didn't go into the heavy negativity within each of these groups. For example, some of them lived a heroic life and may have also been part of the problem because they weren't angels either, right? And so, but at the same time, they had their own battles and had their own things that they were going through, but they fought for their people. And so that's what I want to show, that there's a rich, super rich history. If you want to be respected as a Native American, all you got to do is understand your history, because that is so much strength and so much power and so much wisdom in these people. There's another stamp, Red Cloud. And so we don't go and tell the stories of everybody. We just go and tell the kind of a little blurb about the different people. So, and you can see that. Then now we're starting to go into modern day. So we can see that this is one of the Medal of Honor winners who was in World War II in the mountains of Italy, and another World War II group of people, the code talkers, who, the way I look at this, every time I do one of these paintings, I get kind of emotional because everybody that I mention has had a family or has been part of a church or part of a tribe or part of something. And every time we lose one, we lose more than just that person. We lose a whole history of that person and that family that's affected, and all the children and wives and husbands and on and on and on, of those people. But we try to tell the story. And the reason we go in this much detail, it's not a lot of detail. We're just showing a little blurb. This is so when we get to the parents part of this, you'll be able to see that you can go deeper into the stories. This one, the story behind the Mohawk iron workers is that they were known as fearless. Back in the early days, the skyscrapers, they were the ones that they would send up because they had no fear. And they would work in these places that normal people couldn't. I could never go up there and do the things that these guys did. And one of the stories I remember hearing was one of the skyscrapers, there's always accidents everywhere, but one of the skyscrapers structure fell where half the Mohawk of specific tribe young men who worked in the iron workers were on that, and they lost a great number of their braves that one day. And after that, they said that they couldn't have so many. The tribe decided they were not going to have more than so many of their workers on any one construction project. but that's something you only know by researching, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So this is a statue in Korea, so that represents all the Korean vets. And there's one of them. And then this is also Korea. So Korean War. So now we went through World War I and II, Korean War. This is Vietnam, Jungle of Vietnam's specific guide. This is the last and all, I guess this was the only female Native American to ever have been died in action under attack in modern warfare. So this represents that person, Lori. And then this is the just represents the way that this particular person put together, or was always known for how they saw the whole globe, our current day way we handle nature and everything else, how we disrespect nature. This is the other side of that story. And did you see anything you wanted to say? Anything up to this point?
Now, just looking at each of these individuals, we're naming specific people, but they represent many, many others who are not
Right.
named here.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no way I could put all the heroes on anything, right? Because there's a bunch of people. This represents one of the Native Americans known for and as a ballerina.
She was the first Native American prima ballerina in the United States.
Right.
You don't hear about things like that.
No. Yeah. And then this is a person known for her art.
She has pottery that is sold internationally for crazy amounts of money. Her stuff is just beautiful. And she's known for blackware pottery. You should go look her up. You should see the stuff that she's done over her lifetime. Amazing.
And then this would be a famous actor that you would know to see the picture of. I didn't put the pictures of some of the people in here because I didn't have pictures, but you can look them up and see who they are. This is a famous actor, and it goes on and it talks about prayers. It talks about other things of praying for the legacy of these people. So that's the first part. That's the children's part. So you're able to go through and use poems and just talk about the goal here is see the number of names in different ways, right? A lot of them were warriors, past warriors, peacemakers, and current, more modern day warriors. But a lot of them were artists in other ways. So this part is strictly for the parents to lead discussions. So here we put a bunch of websites that you can go to in order to read more about Crazy Horse and each of these people that we just saw pictures of. Didn't put a lot of words into the an actual poetry, just like 4 lines per each person. But if you wanted to learn more, we got the websites here where you go to. Then other activities. In each case, we have activities in each of these books for the parents to walk through. And some of them are prayers and some of them are Bible studies. Here we have a couple of things like that. Is there anything that stood out to you, Anne, while you're going through this that you would like to bring up that maybe we haven't touched on yet?
Well, I think it's just some of the activities I thought were very well crafted and well developed, and it covered a wide range of different things. And that to me, as a parent looking back on having a book like this when my kids were younger, where I had a parent guide to help me help them, that would have been wonderful. So I just see this as something where a parent or a Sunday school teacher or someone who's in charge of helping youth can use it. And if you're not Christian, you can still use it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's a book for everyone.
Yeah. It's specifically designed for to help teach children the stories of their past and in a positive way, but it's often based on just traumatic things that you have to have the conversation one at some point in your life. So we're focusing on the paintings. Some of the paintings are more uplifting, but we have the whole concept of the Native American history has been tragedy after tragedy after tragedy, but out of that has been legacy after legacy after legacy. And so if you don't know your legacy, you can be convinced that you are not of value. And I can imagine the United States being the way the United States is without the sacrifices made by some of the people in these books. If you look at even, I mean, you know, there's, like I said, there's two sides of every story. And we grew up with, I grew up with cowboys and Indians, and the Indians were always honored, but not necessarily the good guy, right? In this case, these American Indians were good guys, depending on how you looked at them in the worst case, right? Because they honored their people, they protected their people. If you look at, you can look at people who have been affected in both ways, but I can imagine, you know, for example, we might not have won World War II, might not have, we might have had it worse in all the different battles if it wasn't for some of these people who are the heroes. And
Yeah.
anyway, so that's it. I'm going to take my screen off. And so now we gave him a lot of things to look at and think about. What do we want to do with all of this?
Well, obviously, we want everyone who's watching to share this video so it can spread the word and get people to learn more about their own history and the amazing people we have in this country. And then, if you'd like, go to Amazon and purchase a book. Share it with your kids.
Yeah. And the paintings too. The paintings. So let me talk about the paintings for a second.
Yeah.
Most of these paintings are large. They're 48 by 36 originals. And we give these things away. I mean, they're $10,000 paintings. We give away to people so that they'll tell the story. Because what we want to do is want people to know the truth story about what's happening. Most of what we hear, we don't hear anything anymore, right? Because they don't teach this stuff in school. They teach maybe all the negatives are very slanted or with a propaganda or with a twist of some kind. So we just want to know what the facts are, right? People make their own decisions. So we want to show this in a visual way, an artistic way to drive emotion and understand what was going on and what goes on. So that's one thing, but we give them away. And so we can use help in donations. We can also use help in just buying the images and buying, the prints of the images from the book or whatever else you can think about doing related to that, and spreading the word for us and with us, and also teaching the young kids about the real history of what's going on, what's gone on, and so that they can be critical thinkers into the future. Can't be a critical thinker if you don't know the truth. Can't be a critical thinker if you only hear one side of the story. You got to hear all the sides of the story.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I'm going to let, that's it. So we'll see you on the next podcast, and we'll probably go in a little more detail on Underground Railroad. And that would be the next one maybe we can do.
That's fascinating too. I like that one.
All right. So now this has been the BrentwoodPodcast.com, and thank you for listening in.
Bye.